Welcome to The Last Track, where we help people showcase the last track of their life story in their final wishes. I am your host, Brian Norris, the co-owner of Bateman Funeral Home in Newport, Oregon. Just like a song can bring you back to a day, a time, and a memory, so too can a well-planned service. We're going to be talking a little bit about religious services. Sometimes if you have a loved one that maybe is a different religion than you, it can be a little bit difficult because you're not quite sure what to expect, or you're not quite sure how to prepare, or what is appropriate or is taboo, or what is the right thing to do. And you certainly don't want to do the wrong thing so that you can try to do exactly what the person's wishes were. And so this is certainly not going to be all inclusive and comprehensive, but what we are going to do is we will be chatting just briefly about a few things that you might run into that maybe you're not familiar with. And so we're going to just do a real quick couple highlights of things to think about. Let's start with the Buddhist faith. If you have a loved one who's Buddhist and you're not, and you're going to be involved in some of that, you're going to hear the funeral director ask you a few questions as far as when is the right time to have a viewing and when is the right time to do the burial. Because if you're going to be involving the religious order, the monks that are there are going to come up with the date and the time for the appropriate date and the time for a viewing if there's going to be one, and the appropriate date and time for when the burial or the cremation should take place. And so just be aware that if that is going to be involved, that they will be looking, and it's not going to be when do you want, it's actually what does the religion say is the appropriate date and time. There also may be a few things in there where there's going to be an offering plate that's going to be placed in front of your loved one if there's going to be a viewing. On that, there's going to be maybe a plate that's going to have some food that you're going to place there. You may also have the Buddha there as with a candle. There will be two candles as well. And one of the things is you're thinking, well, should I have white candles or red candles, or what is the appropriate? For a Buddhist service, it's going to be the red candle. And if it's for a very young person, the colors may be pink or even closer to white. But if they're older, then it's going to be red candles. And they will also check, they'll help you to let you know if that's going to be the case, that's going to be there, as well as there will be some incense, and you'll have the appropriate incense that will be there. And that will also be on that table as well with the offering. And then there may also, if this is a burial, there's going to have one by the decedent, and then there's going to be another one that's going to be off, and that will have a picture of the Buddha there. And I think I mentioned the one over by the decedent actually will have a picture of the decedent versus Buddha. But the other table will be the one that has the table with Buddha, and will also have the same thing I mentioned on the first table will also be on the second table. So those are some things to think about if you have a loved one that is Buddhist. There are certainly all kinds of books and all kinds of YouTube videos and that type of thing that show a traditional service. But those are some things to be prepared for as you are moving towards your final arrangements for a loved one that may be Buddhist, and that maybe you want to ask them some of those questions. Do they want a traditional service? And if it's traditional, then these are some of the things that are going to be involved in it, as well as there will be some chanting and some prayers and that type of thing. And so those are things to consider. If you have a loved one that's Catholic, a lot of times the family, especially if the rest of the family is not Catholic, sometimes they forget about some things. And the first one being is a rosary. And even if a person is being cremated, the question does come up sometimes as to, do they want to have the loved one have a rosary in their hands? And the rosary, if they're being buried, can be placed in their hand. It can be also placed within the casket. It can be placed in their hands as they are being cremated as well. The metal pieces will probably just be sorted out and placed in the cremated remains, but everything else, and there are also rosaries that are made out of plastic as well. And so, you may want to keep, if there's an heirloom or a family keepsake rosary that has been in the family for generations and generations, you certainly may not want to bury that or have that be cremated, but maybe you do. And maybe grandma or grandpa wants to have that rosary placed with them, because maybe it was their father's or it was their grandfather's or great grandfather's, and they want to take that with them because it's a thing of comfort. Think about that question. A crucifix with the image of Jesus on that cross. And that's something that a lot of times families forget about, especially if they're not having a traditional service and they're just going to be a cremation. They forget that a crucifix, when you do have the service, because you may have a burial mass, that's, even though you're not having the body present or the casket present, but there can be a crucifix there, and the priest can bless that crucifix, and then that goes back to the family, or it can be placed with the person in the ground. But most of the time, it stays with the person throughout the service, and then it's blessed and returned back to the family, many times to the widow or the widower. But that's something that a lot of people forget about. And if you're working with a funeral home, hopefully they're going to bring up some of these questions during that final arrangement. If you're sitting with a parent or a child or somebody that's getting close to passing and you're helping them through the final arrangements, just ask that question. Do they want to have a crucifix with them? And what do they want to have done with that? Holy water, most of the time, is provided by the church. If you're not familiar with it, maybe a little taken aback if you're coming in, processing in with a family, and there's water being kind of sprinkled around. That's very symbolic, and it's something that the priest will do, or a deacon will do, or somebody that's the official there as they're blessing the casket. And then as the casket's just before it goes into the ground, that type of thing, they'll have holy water. But that's something that will take place at a Catholic service. There's a few other religions out there. I mean, and there's the simple, I shouldn't say simple because religions aren't simple, but there's some of the other more traditional that people know about. If they're there, there's a lot of readings that can be done in a Christian setting that can be done, the 24 Psalms and 118 Psalms and those types of things, and those can be read during a service. Eastern Orthodox religions, they have a lot of readings and hymns that come from the 118th Psalms. During the visitation, something that would be, if you're not familiar with it, is the visitation actually runs not clockwise, but counterclockwise. And as you're going around the casket, you're going counterclockwise, and you'll see a lot of people that will come and bend over and kiss the decedent if there's a visitation going on, that you'll see that done. There's also, they go to the graveside and have another service at the graveside, and there'll be another service there. So there's a lot of things that are involved with religious services. Take some time to maybe familiarize yourself with them. If you're doing this for yourself and there's a few things that you want to have done at your service, write them down and make sure you communicate that with whoever is going to be making your final arrangements. If you're doing this for somebody and because they can't get out or they can't ride or that type of thing, and you're trying to get some things together, As you're preparing those final arrangements, ask your loved one or the person that you're working with some of these questions. Ask them specific. Are there some religious things that you want to have done present at your service? Some people may say, I only want a couple prayers. Some people may say, I want a final blessing and keeping, that type of thing that they want to have said at their service. But those are just some things to kind of help you get started, to get the questions going in your mind and to work with your family member.